Well, Bill's here.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's good for me. Bill is that this topic is really good for Bill.
Abhishek Kumar. I don't. Well, I recognize Lucas. I think I know Lucas Mattias. Oh, I'm not too sure.
So I'm going ahead and start running the disclosures.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Mark Himmelstein. I'm the CTO for RISC-V International, and these are the disclosures. Only RISC-V members may attend. This is in order to protect our IP rights. We have an agreement when we become a member. It's important that anybody who goes ahead and joins a meeting includes their name of their affiliation, their company, or if they're an individual, say individual, or an institution, so everybody knows where everybody comes from. We have an antitrust policy. We abide by the regulations in the United States and other countries. There is a link at the bottom so you can check that out. We are a collaborative and welcoming community. There's a code of conduct. If there are any issues, please contact as specified in that code of conduct website page, or send mail to help@riscv.org. But we're intending to be more than just not violating code of conduct. We want people to feel welcome. We want to have them feel included, and have them feel like they could share their ideas and not feel threatened in any way, shape, or form. We do have meeting conventions. We start our meetings for 1 hour at 5 after. We tend to try to not a rat hole. If there is a topic, then we either handle it in email or schedule a time to do that. And we worry about people's time zones and other things, so we try to make meeting times. Obviously, there's a lot of competition for 7 a.m. Pacific time, and we try to accommodate as much as we can. So welcome to the meeting, and hopefully, if there are any questions, we can get them answered. You can always send mail to help@riscv.org, and thank you very much.
Okay, so welcome everyone to another RISC-V technical sessions. We are about to get started. For those willing to ask questions, so we are going to ask you to raise the questions during the presentation, but they are going to be answered at the end. So you can, and at the end, if you want to speak or talk and to ask a question instead of write that in the chat, just raise your hand and I'm going to allow you to speak and ask your question. So today's presentation is about using Template Repo to set up or run RISC-V Arch test suite under RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or Ubuntu. So we have Mark today, who is a very seasoned engineer who is going to guide us to the process and share some of his work from the past and what he's using or how he's testing RISC-V, run RISC-V Arch test suite. So Mark, thank you very much for joining, and is now with you.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Raphael. Let me share my screen. Slideshow from the beginning. Can everybody, I'm assuming everybody can see that, right? Okay, good. So this presentation is about how to get you up and running from a kind of like a template or a template perspective and running the architectural test suite that RISC-V International is developing for it's not compliance, it's so that you can test your DUT against the ISA spec to make sure that you are matching the spec, and once you've passed all the tests, you can be RISC-V branded as a device. Okay, good, down. So what we've put together is a repository that is a template, and we've provided it out to the community through GitHub, and I will give you the link a little bit later on to the actual GitHub repository. But the first question is, why do we really need this repository? Why do we need this template to get started using the RISC architectural test suite? And there's a number of issues that it addresses or are addressed by this that I went through when I was first trying to get this started and using it in our company to test, to basically use it as a test vehicle for our chip, our DUT, as well as getting the to make sure that we were in compliance with the ISA spec. A number of them were, there's a number of dependencies that are needed to be installed, and some of those can be installed using they need to be installed using root privileges, either sudo or something similar. And there's other ones that you can install into a user's local directory under home directory.local/ and then bin and lib and all the other directories. And so, luckily for me, I have sudo privileges on our development machines, but some users don't have those privileges available to them, and they need to go through either some form of IT, either local or corporate or something like that, and they need to be able to make the case of, hey, I need these things installed in order to get this tool to work. And so in my mind, the least amount of things that somebody needs to make a case for to a corporate or an IT department, the better it is. And let's be honest, most of the users of the architectural test suite, they may not have experience in installing packages on a system, whether that's Ubuntu or Red Hat, building libraries, etc. So I really put this repo together as a way to help us, but a way to help the general community to get them up and running as quickly as possible with the architectural test suite. Obviously, when you're running under Red Hat Enterprise Linux, it has its own unique set of challenges, as some of you have probably found out. A couple of them that are very glaring is Z3, which is a dependency for sale, which is a open source program / library, I believe, that is provided by Microsoft, is not available as a package under Red Hat. So this had to be built from scratch and then installed into a user local directory. Now, just the fact that it has to be built from scratch is a major roadblock for some corporate IT people, and because they are very hesitant to download source code and build and install a application globally on a system. They would very much rather go through the standard package manager type direction for installing, different types of packages. And opam, which is a source-based source-based package manager for OCaml. Red Hat also does not have this available. And compiling it was not really an option. So I used a binary release for this, and it's just copied over into the user's local directory. So in saying this, all this really helps us in getting up and running quickly, so that you don't have to, you have to convince, if you have to go through corporate IT, you have to convince them to install the minimal amount of packages, and then you can do the rest in your local home directory. So this also begs the question, why can't we just use another Linux distro other than Red Hat, for example, like Ubuntu, which most of us are familiar with? While Ubuntu is one of my favorite distros, I've been using it for years for software development. Unfortunately, when you get over to the EDA side of things, the chip development, they are very limited in what is supported by the EDA tool vendors, Synopsys, Cadence, Mentor, etc. out there. Basically, if you're a Red Hat Enterprise Linux and or equivalent distros, which would be Rocky, for example, that's about it for what the EDA tool vendors support. They do not support Ubuntu. So a lot of companies, especially larger companies, they do not want to deviate from using Red Hat or a supported distro for their EDA tools for support reasons from Mentor and company. And as I stated, as I talked about earlier, corporate IT is really hesitant to install any packages from source. So you have a number of issues when you start wanting to run this on a DUT, which you need the EDA tools to run the RTL and the DUT, but you want to be able to use this RISC-Arch test suite framework in order to do that. So for example, this is the 2023 Cadence Compute Platform Roadmap. This is all of the distributions and everything that they currently support for their EDA tools through this year, and or what has been dropped off the list. I'm sure you can see CentOS has already been dropped as of 2021 with the changes that Red Hat made to that. With 8 not even being supported at all with the EDA tools. And it's pretty much Red Hat Enterprise Linux, except for whatever SLES is, which is secure. That's Secure Linux Enterprise something. And I've never really been in. I've never had any exposure to that, but most of it is Red Hat. So you can see that this poses kind of an issue for those of us who want to use the architectural test suite, but face these challenges of getting it to work under Red Hat Enterprise with the EDA tools. So what does this template repo, what does it provide? One, it provides a set of scripts for both Ubuntu and Red Hat, separating what you need to install as sudo from what you can install in a user's home directory in order to run the architectural test suite. So I did it this way so that if you have to go talk to somebody in IT, you can give them the sudo script and say, here, this is what I need to install. This is what I need you to install, sorry, on this system from a system perspective. And these are standard packages. They hopefully should not have any problem with installing them. And there's a very minimal set of packages that need to be installed. So it keeps your, you having to justify what you need installed to a minimum. And so it has both, like I said, it has both Ubuntu and Red Hat Enterprise and the scripts needed to install both the sudo stuff and the stuff that you would install in a user's home directory under that user's home directory .local. It also has a template framework with a dummy DUT in it. This can serve as a starting point for what you want to do with your SOC, with your RTL and your DUT. It has all of the files already in place that kind of will tell you, that you can either add to or change, and they're fairly well documented. And finally, there's a script at the top that will let you kick everything off and run the entire RISC architectural test suite for any of the given extensions or whatever, and will run your DUT and then run the sail model afterwards, and then compare the signatures and do all that stuff so that it's kind of a one button push. There are some limitations issues with doing it this way. One of the biggest ones is some of the dependencies to run the RISC-V architectural test suite are installed locally, in some person's home directory. So if you have multiple people running the architectural test suite, they would each have to install these same dependencies locally. There's nothing to say that you couldn't tweak the install scripts to install them someplace else, like /opt and put everything in there. But again, that goes back to if you have a corporate IT and you don't have access to sudo privileges, you may not be able to do that. So it is a limitation that we've run into, where one person, if they want to run a certain part of the test suite to test something or to debug in a situation, has to kind of install everything locally in their home directory, all the dependencies that are not sudo, installed by sudo. And another thing is, if you were to look at using the RISC architectural test suite in some kind of continuous integration, Jenkins, for example, it can be a challenge also due to the same home local dependencies for the tools and the some of the libraries. Again, this can be overcome by installing them to something like opt RISC-V arch test. But again, you need to get, if you have to, you would need to get access maybe via your local IT department to be able to do that. I have got it to work under Jenkins. So Jenkins runs for us on a weekly basis. Not all of the extensions, but some of the extensions that we're currently looking at and debugging, and so it will clone everything and sets everything up and runs the extension and runs it under sale and produces a report for us on a weekly basis. But it can be a little bit of a challenge to set all that up because of the dependencies that need to be installed in somebody's home directory, and Jenkins really doesn't have a home directory per se. So there are some limitations, issues in doing it this way, but I think that the ease of actually setting everything up and getting everything running far outweigh what these issues are. And if anybody needs to go further into using Jenkins, or what's the other one? Jenkins and there was a fork of Jenkins, I can't remember, but if anybody needs some more information about the continuous integration and the stuff that I've set up, I'd be happy to share that with them. My email address will be at the end of the presentation. So the actual repo directory structure. So this is the actual repo as if you were to download it or to clone it, I should say, or from GitHub. So you can see that it has init and init Ubuntu and Red Hat RHEL scripts are the ones that you would run to install everything in your local home directory. The dependencies and the tools. So for example, under Ubuntu, actually what I can do is, where is my thing? Let's pause this for a second. This is it. So this is the actual repository as it's sitting in GitHub. So for example, under this Red Hat install, and it's going to open this up for me. Thank you. There we go. It basically runs the two scripts to install RISC-V and install SAIL. And so those scripts can be found under init scripts, Red Hat Enterprise. So here is that one sudo script that you need to run as sudo under Red Hat Enterprise. And you can see that it installs a very minimal set of tools that are needed that hopefully, if you have to deal with corporate IT again, they would not have a heartburn in actually installing these for you. And then if you go into, let's see, install, this just does a pip3 install of the current RISC-V release binary. And if you go into SAIL, now this is a little bit thing. So this will actually clone the Z3 repository, build the Z3 binary, do a make install to your local directory, copy over opam, and then do everything else that would need it to build SAIL. So this will build SAIL in your local home directory under Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And then at the end, obviously it clones the RISC Arch test directory from GitHub as well. So this is just basically the Ubuntu scripts are the same as this. So the Ubuntu scripts do the same thing. They have a sudo portion as well as a local one, although their sudo stuff is a little bit more has a little bit more to it because under Ubuntu normally you do have sudo privileges. So if you look at Ubuntu and the sudo install so it actually it can install opam as a package, for example. It can install Z3 as a package for the dependencies for SAIL because they're available for Ubuntu, but they're not available for Red Hat. So going back and so this is just setting up the path to wherever you have your RISC-V cross compiler tools installed. This sets some of these other scripts are setting up the local path for your sale, where your sale emulator is going to be after it's been installed locally, and then this is the one script that runs the entire thing. So it runs RISC-V, and you specify what you want to run, what test suite, and your environment, and it will run the entire RISC architectural test for you. And then we have an example dot here, which has an example dot the YAML files and the Python file for setting up a device for testing. And this is fairly well documented in here as to what all this is. This is the Python script and the YAML scripts for actually setting your device up. So you can use these as a kind of a template for configuring what your SOC with your RTL is going to be doing. Under the environment, it has a model test and a linker script file set up for you, so that you can use this as kind of a jumping off point for setting up your own dot from current slide. So that's kind of the overview of the actual repository itself. It's free. It's freely available for anybody to clone, for anybody to make a fork of, whatever you want to do. I just ask that if you do find anything that is wrong or could be improved, either put a PR back into this repository on GitHub, or email me, or get a hold of somebody at Inspire that can, with whatever the change or the fix is, or the addition. We're providing this as a give back to the community, and with hope that it will help smooth the way for a lot of the bumps in the road that we faced when we were initially getting this up and running. And with the hope that, if you find anything that's wrong or maybe could be improved, we can roll that back into here for somebody else to not have to hit that same roadblock that you did. Okay, so this is just an example of how the steps to set up and configure the repo under Red Hat Enterprise. So obviously you need to run that one sudo install script. If you had sudo privileges, you would run them under sudo or provide that to your corporate IT. And then as that's all that has to be done as a sudo user. Everything else can be done locally in your own home directory as whoever you are. So the user installs just runs the init all Red Hat Enterprise Linux script. Go get a cup of coffee. It's going to take a while to build the various different parts they need to, but it takes about 20 or 30 minutes, and then you're done. You can test it afterwards by just setting up the paths, running the scripts to set the paths up, and then typing RISC-V --help, and you should see something similar to down below there, where it shows you the version and the standard help screen for RISC-V. So you can see I've tried to make it as easy as possible to get everything set up so that you can start getting your DUT or your RTL/SOC integrated into the architectural test suite and start testing, and to see where you match the ISA and maybe where you don't. We have found it a great help in our development to have this as a tool to run against, to make sure that we are in compliant. There's that word again. We are matching the spec, the ISA spec. I have to be careful with my words. Setting it up under Ubuntu is very similar. There's obviously a sudo script for doing that will install pretty much the SAIL dependencies for SAIL under Ubuntu as on a global on the system, and then there's the local install that will do the same thing that it was doing under Red Hat. It will download the SAIL repository or clone the SAIL repository, build it locally, and everything like that. And then at the end, you can do the same thing: RISC-off -- help, and you should see the standard RISC-off help screen. So again, I tried to make this as simple and easy as possible. Yeah, so this is the example .dot directory that I was showing earlier to help you set up your .dot. The example ISA YAML file, that is what defines the processor that's in your .dot. The platform, some of the items outside of the core of the .dot, if you have an M-time, if you've implemented N-time, NMI, etc., that are not necessarily part of the processor core or the heart core itself. And then the actual Python script. And the Python script is what is used to generate the makefile, or what I should say RISC-off uses to generate the makefile for running your .dot under the test suite. It is supposed to be commented as to what each section in the Python script does, and I think it is fairly well commented. So that is basically what sets up whatever the parameters are for what you need to do to run your .dot via a makefile. You know, how do you run it under the whatever tools that you're using, whether it's Cadence or Synopsys or Mentor or somebody else. Obviously, the example.environment directory, there's two files: the linker script for building your .dot within the test cases, or for building the test cases for your .dot, and then the model test.h. And for those of you who are not familiar with the architectural test suite, the model test.h is where these are the macros that are in place that allow you to add things to not add test cases, but add things that you need to do for your particular environment in order to run the architectural test suite. So for example, if you have a serial port that you dump data out of, the simulated serial port that you dump data out to that needs to be initialized, you can add it in one of the test macros at the beginning of the test, whatever the test the test case that you're running is. If you need at the end of the test case, if you need to dump the signatures out, or to trigger the test bench to dump the signatures from the simulation to where it's running on, you can do that through one of the macros. So the model test.h has all of those macros inside of it, and I have defined some of them already as examples of what you can do. So that's also a good starting point for you to add to. And there's an example .bin directory that has any programs that you need specifically to run the test cases again on your .dot. What I've provided in there, if you've noticed, there was a freedom bin to hex executable that's in there. That is a executable that was built from source code that has been released by Sci5. And what that will do is, for those of you who are familiar with RTL test benches, it will take a binary file and turn it into a hex file, either hex 8, 16, 32, 64, whatever you need, which can then be backdoor loaded into memory as part of the test bench initialization and bring up. So it allows you to take, if you have to take a test case that you're running and convert it from a binary to a hex file and load it into whatever your boot device is, per se, for your DUT as part of the test bench. So that's also part of this repository, the actual binary executable. And like I said, you can find the actual source code for that under Sci5's GitHub repository. So they provided that out to the community as a free tool. Okay, so this is the end of the thing. This is my contact information. And I'm assuming, Raphael, that these slides will be available after this when I send them to you.
Yep, the slides in the recording will be available within 24 hours from the end of this
Okay,
presentation.
and so if you don't get my, I'll leave this up right now because the next slide is this. I'll just leave this up so that people can write it down. So it's about 10:40, so I was right about 35 minutes content-wise. So I see a couple questions in the Q&A already.
You can, so yeah, you can go ahead and try answer them. Some are comments, but there are some questions there.
Yeah, I saw from Lucas, have you other than Red Hat, Enterprise Linux, and Ubuntu? No, I didn't consider any other distros other than those two, primarily for the reason being that as far as the EDA tools vendors go, there are no other distributions other than Red Hat. Other than this Secure Linux Enterprise, SLES, which I've never heard of before, but pretty much the entire EDA tools, everybody, Mentor, Cadence, Synopsys, everybody, they just tell you go run Red Hat. If you want support, go run Red Hat. The reason I chose Ubuntu is for kind of sort of the same reason, but on the software side of things, because a lot of companies that provide compilers and things like that to their customers basically point them to Ubuntu. In the past, I've worked for companies that have gotten tool chains and other deliverables from Broadcom and from other companies like that. And Broadcom's basically corporate line was, we have tested this under Ubuntu XYZ. If you are running it on anything else other than Ubuntu XYZ, well, you know, and you run into an issue, please run this on Ubuntu XYZ. We have looked at Docker as well, Lucas. It's just, yes, avoiding the dreaded corporate IT department. Docker presents its own set of problems. One, Docker is not supported under Red Hat. They have something called Podman, which is supposedly Docker compatible, and will take a Docker container and run it under Red Hat Enterprise. But Docker is not supported under Red Hat because Red Hat considers Docker to be an unsecure environment. And that is their corporate line, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But yeah, we have looked at that as far as the architectural test suite group itself. And I actually have a couple of Docker images out there that are Ubuntu based that have the cross tools, the GCC cross tools installed on them. So, but not the, I know we looked at like installing Sail, for example, on a Docker image. But the issue was there is getting the dot binary that you're testing into the Docker image or into the VM image, Docker/podman, and then getting the signatures out to compare against what you're running. Your dot is running on whatever your EDA tools are, and being able to get all of that synchronized. You know, it would be nice if you could run everything in the Docker/podman image, or everything under, you know, on your local machine, one way or the other. It's kind of, how do you bridge that gap between the two that ends up being the problem?
So David raises his hand. So David, do you want to ask a
Oh,
question verbally?
the sale images. Well, I think Bill's on the line. I saw you, Bill. Well, for one thing, sale is currently is in active development. So if we were to provide pick a point on the sale tree and compile everything, and then provide it in this repository as a binary image to run, it may not be the latest and greatest. And to keep that up to date and to keep it following with the sale development might be, well, it's something that we did not want to take on as a company, because we kind of put this out there, and to be completely honest with you, I haven't touched this repository in, let me check here, in about, well, last year sometime. How about that? It says last year, where the last commit was April 4th of 2022. So we kind of put this out there, and haven't touched it since. But yeah, we could provide, well, and providing the signature files is something different. You're talking about the signature files that are actually produced by the ELF, by sale, running whatever the test is, right? I'm assuming. And that is also because the actual tests themselves, while most of the base tests for ICM extension and the ICM are pretty, those are pretty well established. Some of the other ones aren't, and they're currently in flux. So they're currently being developed. So that goes back to, yeah, if everything was solid, written in stone, we could just provide a set of signature files and bypass sale altogether. And then you run your DUT and compare your signature files versus the golden copy. It's getting the golden copy that is the issue. Yeah, right. Yeah, you need to go. Alan said it right. You need the golden model signatures, which can be different for different DUTs for which you need sale. Well, I mean, but he's talking about golden signatures from sale, not right. So if you were to run for example, sale should produce the same signature for me as for you, Alan, correct? If you could unmute Alan.
Yeah, you can talk
for a second. Yeah, that's a correct statement, right? That is correct, right?
There are some tests that will work for any DUT. Once you have anything that resembles privilege modes, that stops working.
Right. So, for example, you could have a golden model signatures for ICM.
Yep. And there are probably a few.
ICM, and that's well, and probably the privileged one too, because that's e-break, e-call, and misaligned stuff, right?
Well,
so,
it's more complicated than that. The load instruction is in I. For complete test of load, you need sale because different DUTs will give you different answers depending on what privilege modes they support. Yeah, how, whether
Oh,
you
but
have
I thought we were
data-
running. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than just providing golden copies or signature files that you can then run your DUT and compare it against. So and like I said, SAIL is. I know that Bill is currently heading up the SAIL development for RISC-V International. I believe that's still a true statement. And he has plans to help plans to have SAIL be more configurable so that it will more closely match your DUT, or you can make it, or you can configure it so that it more closely matches your DUT, so you are more closely comparing apples to apples rather than apples to oranges. And I believe that is a more correct statement, right, Bill? Are you still here? Did you unmute him for a second?
Yeah, he can talk
Oh, okay.
if he wants. So Bill, if you want to verbally
I
answer.
don't know whether he's listening or not.
Why don't I'll comment for him if he's not there.
He's
intent-
here. I don't think he's.
Yeah, he's here, but they're good. The intent
Well,
is
I'm here.
SAIL-
David is there.
Hmm?
Well, I want to ask why I couldn't post my questions, because the question and answer and the chat button, both of them are not active on my. Is it because I'm watching? I'm joining the meeting from a phone. Is that why it's not?
Yeah, that might be the reason why. So if you let me get this question from Mike Thompson, and then there's 1, 2, 3. Yes, Podman does support Docker images. Oh, William says I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. Figured out how to make that happen. Okay, so there's a couple of things brought up with regard to SAIL. So first of all, let me address the running SAIL and the problems with that. First of all, we recognize that there are problems. There are security problems. We have at least 3 classes of customers who want to run the SAIL model, and they have varying and competitive requirements. One group at one end, security, the corporate infrastructure requires security. So we're trying to come up with, we know what we want to do for that and how we can solve that particular problem. At the other end of the spectrum, we have people who want to get their fingers all over the SAIL model and be able to, maybe change the SAIL model in some regard or do some work on it, something like that. So we need to be able to support various layers of requirements. The problem we have right now is that we don't have any resources to implement that. That's not my primary job. My primary job is to implement SAIL features for the RISC-V model. So we don't have resources to do that. Last year, we spent a great deal of time working with some contractors who might be willing to do it, but their their bids on it were far too high. So we're trying to figure out what we can do about that.
If you don't mind me asking, what is the concerns from a security perspective?
The things that you listed. So both, I get a lot of my feedback from you and also from Stacy Seacat.
Oh, the fact that you have to install like Z3 and it's not available as a package. Yeah. Sorry.
OPAM, OPAM is a pain.
OPAM not being available as a package as well. Yes.
Right. So all of those are things that are of concern. We know how to solve them, but it requires work, and we need someone to do that. Okay. With regard to the SAIL model, I'll re-emphasize what Alan said earlier about the idea of comparing signatures. The SAIL model, this is by definition of the TSC. The SAIL model is the definition of what a RISC-V core should do. Now, we haven't implemented everything yet, but that's what the definition is. And when you execute your L file, you will generate a signature, and that needs to be compared to the same L file executing on your DUT. And those two need to be compared. And it can't be, you can't salt away your results and do a comparison, because exactly for what Alan said, different implementations, different configurations of the model will yield different results.
Yes.
Okay. And finally, with regard to configuration, this has been a thorn under my butt for a long time.
I know it
because
has,
we-
Bill.
Yeah, so configuring the model, I put in a pull request on this and it's not gained any traction. So it looks like I've got to do things more piecemeal to get that in place. I've got a lot of stuff working, but none of it is in place. Even the simplest of things have not been ratified yet. So we're working on that. But one of the big things that will be addressed this year, I may have to get real hard-nosed about it and push things through much
Good.
more firmly to get the configuration done, because that's going to beat you up badly in trying to get some sort of compatibility between your DUT and the sale model. So that's
Yeah.
what I got to say.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for the input. Mike Thompson. Yes. I can tell you how we solved that problem of the end of test indicator and the signature writer. And it goes back to model_test.h. So in model_test.h, there is a macro that is run at the end of any of the given test cases. And so the signature itself is the signature that the test case writes is written to various different locations in quote memory based upon that particular test case. But so they're not necessarily at the same place for every test case. So we added at the end of each test case in the end of test macro in the model test.h, two things. One, we copy the signature from wherever the test case is written to a location that we know about that is now the same location for all of the test cases, quote unquote. And we then actually trigger a GPIO pin from the DUT that the test bench is monitoring, and based upon that GPIO triggering, it will finish the test and then copy the test bench, then copies the signature from the global area out to the actual system. So it was kind of a two-step process. The end of test copies the signature from wherever it is inside of the test case to another location in memory in the test bench. And then after we signal the test bench that the test has completed, it then copies that global signature area out. So I believe, if I remember right, that those portions of what we've done are in the model test.h that is in the repo, or at least that there's some comments in there that says here you can do this here and do that there. So but that's the way we handled being end of test indicator and writing the signature out to the system so that you can then grab it and compare it against the sale model. Yes, I would take it against SLES if you want to create the said scripts and stick them in the whatever that directory is in the scripts directory under a directory called SLES. I would be happy to, Jeff. I've never dealt with SLES, and I don't know. Is that an open source, commercial? Is Jeff still here?
So it is the enterprise version for OpenSUSE. So it's pretty much.
Okay. That's OpenSUSE Enterprise. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I would very much like it if you could provide that. I think that would be a great addition to this, because I don't have access to SLES and what I'm assuming it would have similar challenges / dependencies as Red Hat would. Yeah, well, that's true about RISC sale development. Mike, as far as I know, no, RVI is just looking for the generated HTML report from your run of the architectural test suite that says that you passed whatever your dot is. So if you're an RV32 ICM, you've passed the RV32 ICM extension tests. That's a correct, right, Alan? That's all that we're looking for from an RVI perspective.
Pretty much.
Is just the generated report at the that RISC-V generates at the end, the HTML.
Yeah.
And the style sheet. There's a style sheet that goes with it.
Yeah. And don't try to look at the report without the style sheet.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, and I guess the other part of that is there can be test errors, that mismatches, and you have to basically supply a document that says this is why they're different, and it's really okay, and that's possible.
Right. So if you fail one of the whatever it is, one of the test cases within a test, tests within a test case, then you have to provide documentation as to why you think this is okay.
Yeah, and one of like I was talking about the load instruction, which is one of the most basic instructions and also one of the hardest, because it has non-deterministic results. If you try to write something or read something which is unaligned, you have no idea whether you'll trap or whether you'll get the right answer. And if you
that depends upon whether the dot in question supports misaligned loads, right?
No, unfortunately, that's actually not the case. You can claim to support support that and still trap sometimes. That's legal.
Okay.
I'm working on something that can handle that, but there are other cases like that where there's architecture, you can do this, the spec says you can do this or you can do that. It does not say you must always do this or must always do that, but not sometimes. There's lots of that in the spec, and in general, we don't know how to deal with that. Specifically for load and store, I think I do, and I'm working on it.
Okay. The gentleman that was on the phone, what was your question? Now that we're through this, through these questions. Oh.
You mean Dave?
That
was exactly
Bill,
what I just wanted to confirm. I wanted to confirm that I couldn't post because of that. That's exactly what I wanted.
Oh, yes. That's probably because you're on the phone. Can I say probably? Bill?
Yeah, I'm here.
No, in answer to your last question.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably yes.
We're kind of trying to see which customers are actually going to go for RISC-V branding. We ran into an issue earlier this year with a company wanting to post their results, and we actually ran into some rather significant challenges. They got one of their cores up, but they couldn't get another. And Alan and I spent a bit of time trying to figure out how we were going to resolve that. So that centered around, was it eBreak, Alan?
Yep. And the problem there, and this is the issue that was raised by Mike, is what is this thing when you end the test? And they use eBreak to end the test, and that just stops the simulation, and then we can't eBreak. Oops.
So they actually put eBreak in the model test macro.
Yes.
The one, yeah, okay. And then that's what triggered the test bench. When the test bench saw that, it said the test is done.
Yep. And that's a big issue. We're not quite sure how this. We don't know if this is a test bench issue or their architecture actually does something different, and that actually matters.
Well, the test bench is looking for the signal to come out.
We don't know what it's looking for. It could be looking, it could be digging down into the, guts of the code and seeing, oh yeah, it's executing an e-break instruction. Or it could be looking for something else. We don't know.
More than likely, it's looking at a signal. Okay.
More than likely, it's looking for that, but we don't know that when it tries to execute break on the real system,
did you
it
just
does the
ask
right thing.
did you just ask them for that little piece of their test bench to look at?
I don't think people like to give out the details of their test benches. No, I didn't.
I mean, just the few lines that trigger the end of the test in the test bench. Nothing more.
That doesn't help us determine whether or not it would actually execute the e-break instruction correctly.
But it would tell you what they're doing.
Yeah. But
whether they're looking at a signal or something else.
It doesn't matter what they're doing. The point is, if you can't tell that an instruction works, we don't know. And I've got to go away because I'm supposed to run another meeting right now. Bye.
I know you're supposed to be at a different meeting, and I was actually planning on joining you this morning. So
okay, bye.
Same difference. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. So yes, to answer your question, probably yes. We're still working through some issues on some of the, we currently have ICM, RV64, ICM passing. But so, well, Alan just left. But so let me ask a separate question. Maybe Bill, you can answer this. Since we are going to be claiming that we are RVICMA, or I'm going to get the letters out of order. I don't care. ICM AFD. And currently there is no test for A, atomics, right? As far as the RISC architectural test suite goes. How does that work for branding?
So if you're asking Bill, the Bill we see here is not the Bill that was answering a question. It's
McFadden left.
Yeah, I believe he's going to join other meeting.
Oh, no big deal.
Okay, I think that you have covered all the questions. And then...
Yeah, I see. Well, I'll get with Alan. I'll ask him in the meeting.
Yep.
In a couple of minutes, that question, because that is a question. One of the questions we have is, for all of the other extensions that we're going to be supporting, there is a test suite current, or there is test cases under architectural test suite available to run against, except for A. So how does that work from a quote branding perspective? So, well, whatever. We'll deal with that. That's a separate question. So are there any other questions as far as this goes?
I think you have covered everything.
Okay, good. I got,
so,
like I said, my email address is up there, along with our website. I'll add to this contact slide before I send it to you, Raphael, the link to the GitHub repository. So it will be in the slides, and then I'll shoot those over to you this afternoon.
Okay. Well, Mark,
all right.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem.
And
I'm gonna stop sharing. And
thank you everyone for joining. So see you in the next tech
yeah,
session.
thank you very much, everybody who took the time out, got up early on the West Coast or wherever you are in the world.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.